In this video, let's talk about how the creators of the Spider-Verse movies managed to save Miles and Gwen's relationship from becoming the kind of generic romance we see in so many other films. What makes their dynamic so special is that the creators clearly understood from the beginning that they couldn't rush it. Originally, the goodbye scene in the first movie was actually supposed to include a kiss between them, but the team behind the film decided to remove it because they felt it was happening too early. They realized Gwen still needed more development before the relationship could truly reach that point naturally. And honestly, that decision changed everything for the better. Instead of turning Gwen into someone who only exists to support Miles emotionally, the second movie spends a huge amount of time developing her as her own person. We get to see her struggles, her guilt, her loneliness, her relationship with her father, and the pressure she feels from the Spider Society. She becomes a much more layered and flawed character, which makes their relationship much more real because now it's two fully realized people connecting with each other instead of one character simply being the love interest. Slow burn relationships are already difficult to pull off, but doing it in movies is even harder because films don't have the same amount of time that TV series do. A show can spend multiple seasons slowly building chemistry between characters. Spider-Verse has to balance action, multiverse concepts, emotional arcs, comedy, and huge visual storytelling all within limited runtime, yet somehow they still manage to create a relationship that is compelling and natural.
What do you think?
What I always think. You're amazing.
The first movie was really about the spark between them. It was about two people meeting each other, slowly understanding each other, building trust, and realizing they found someone who genuinely gets them.
I know how hard this is, to have to figure this stuff out on your own. It's kinda nice, not being the only spider person around.
Yeah. If you ever decide to do friends again, I could always open up a slot.
I'll keep you posted.
Even after being separated for such a long time, that connection didn't disappear at all. If anything, the distance made the feelings even stronger, which is exactly why their reunion in the second film carries so much emotional weight.
Well, it's the first time for everything, right?
Another thing that makes their relationship stand out is how carefully the creators handle the romantic moments. The clock tower scene is a perfect example of that. The filmmakers themselves said that scene was one of the hardest parts of the movie to figure out because they wanted it to be romantic without going too far too soon. At the same time, they also didn't want it to sound like two ordinary friends talking. They had to find the perfect middle ground, and that balance is exactly why the scene works so well. You can actually feel that tension throughout the entire scene. The body language, the facial expressions, the way they look at each other, and even the tone of the conversation all scream romance, but there's also emotional understanding there. And honestly, I think that says a lot about how invested the creators themselves are in this relationship. They constantly come up with moments that are extremely romantic, but they keep holding back slightly because they know the story hasn't reached its final emotional payoff yet. Instead of rushing everything, they keep saving those bigger moments for the right time. And that patience is a huge reason why Miles and Gwen's relationship is so much more special than a lot of modern movie romances. If the creators had gone with their original plan and fully pushed Miles and Gwen into a relationship in the very first movie, we probably wouldn't have the level of depth, development, and emotional tension that exists between them right now. A huge part of what makes their dynamic so engaging is the fact that it's still unfinished. There's still emotional buildup, unresolved feelings, and so many obstacles standing between them, and that tension has basically become the emotional core of the entire trilogy. Because honestly, their relationship is the tension. The emotional conflict comes from the fact that they clearly love each other, but at the same time, the story keeps placing barriers between them. They want to be together, but the multiverse, the Spider Society, canon events, and even their own fears keep pulling them apart. That's way more compelling than if they had immediately gotten together in the first film. If that had happened, the writers would have needed to create an entirely different source of emotional conflict for the rest of the trilogy. Instead, the creators chose patience. They stretched the emotional journey across all the films, and because of that, every interaction between Miles and Gwen carries weight. Every reunion matters. Every conversation is important because there's always something unspoken underneath it. And now the story has left behind a massive unresolved question hanging over the audience. Are they actually going to get the happy ending they deserve? Or is something tragic going to happen before they ever truly get that chance? That's what makes the situation so emotional right now. The movies constantly push the idea that tragedy is unavoidable for spider people. The universe itself almost treats suffering like a rule that has to repeat over and over again, but Miles has always been the character challenging those rules. He's the one who keeps saying there's a first time for everything. So now the big question becomes whether he can actually prove that. Can he break the canon? Can he create a different outcome? Can he and Gwen finally be together even when the multiverse itself seems to be telling them they can't? That's also why the creators have been holding back the huge romantic payoff for so long. They're clearly saving it for the final part of the story because it's meant to be earned. Right now their bond is damaged. There's pain, betrayal, guilt, and distance between them after everything that happened in Across the Spider-Verse. Before they can fully come together, they're going to have to rebuild that trust piece by piece, and that emotional reconstruction is gonna be one of the most important parts of the next movie.